like to welcome all of you to VUTV. Thank you so much for joining today. And I think we can begin the session now, sir.
Sure. Yeah, let me just check who the participants are. One second. Attendees. Amrita. Oh yeah, I can't see the attendees. They're just about Vijay, Amrita. They're only us actually. There's nobody else. Can you see others?
There are three students, sir.
Uh, I can't see them. Maybe you can. Okay, just ask them to say hello in the chat box so that I can just see them there.
Yeah.
Anyway, the session is being recorded, so in fact, you
Yes.
people are
Yes.
not.
This will be live on
Yeah.
YouTube as well.
But I
Yes.
mean, again, it's real time. It's always makes more sense. So that's all. I just want to say hello. Okay, so I think let's start because we are recording, and welcome everyone again to the inaugural session of View TV, and I'm very excited to invite all of you, and also more excited to see Vijay and Amrita, both ex-students and who've graduated, kind of joining in. Unfortunately, we don't have Sanya, who's also a co-researcher. She was not able to join. But this is important, and it's an important initiative because, and I would like to, congratulate Vibha and her team for setting this up. It's extremely important, and let me switch on the video so that it's very important we do this on a continuing basis. It's very important that all of the session is primarily to focus on why is research important? Why is publication of a paper important? Why is it that we spend so much of time and energy in the faculty and students side on RI, because a lot of people, and that's the reason why we're having this session, because a lot of people feel that RI, is 6 months, it's too rigorous, I really don't know what I'm doing, I'm not going to do PhD, so why should I do research, right? So all of those are the questions which people have, right, while doing RI, saying that, look, at the undergrad level, does it really make sense, to, do this? And even if I do it, what are the chances of my paper being published? Because, at undergrad level, there's a mental block to a lot of research publications that, people, don't understand how to do research, or, how to analyze data, or or work on leading edge topics. So this is primarily to address and some of these myths, the session. And obviously all of us are available to answer questions real time or in offline mode. So let me start again by the first question, which is primarily why research? And a lot of people ask me this question, is why should at an undergrad level, why should I do research, right? I'm not going to do, I'm interested in a job. I'm interested in doing stuff on the entrepreneurship side. So why should I, do research? So my question always is that you do research not necessarily because you plan to do a PhD. You don't do research because you're planning to do. You're not planning an entrepreneurship, or you're not planning an MBA. You do research primarily to solve a business problem, okay? And that's so important. So I'll repeat. You do research, right, to solve a business problem. Now, then the students obviously ask me, sir, how do I understand what the business problem is, right? And for that, obviously, you have some idea, you may not be an entrepreneur, but you have some idea of some of the leading edge issues which are there in the marketplace. And that's where the identification of that business problem becomes important. And that by itself, and a lot of times, you will find that, yes, sir, I do have this entrepreneurial idea, but I really don't know how to go about it. So RI teaches you the steps of what to do once you have an idea. So the first thing you understand is that to focus on an idea or a research topic which is leading edge. not just leading edge, which has got to be most of the time, even in fact, even bleeding edge. And the reason why we chose, and this topic, and I'll just put this up on the screen again, just this one slide, is is because if you look at the slide, right, it's got two things which are, when we analyze this, and both Amrita and Vijay, can add to this, is the fact that we said that, hey, look, key issues in the Indian market today is obviously a lot of initiatives and corporates around sustainability. And there's a lot of talk about bottom of the pyramid, right? And these are two key markets. What is bottom of the pyramid market? Bottom of the pyramid market are folks with income between $2 to $5 a day. In Indian rupee terms, it translates into about 10,000 to between 10,000 to 15,000 rupees a month. That's classified as bottom of the pyramid, which constitutes nearly about 30% of the Indian population, which is nearly about 300 to 400 million, 300 to 400 million people, a huge market by itself. Then, so people said that, and we also said that, so what is the other key topic which is there in corporate India today, which is issues related to sustainability? What is sustainability? It's related to the environment, right? Things related to how the environment is affecting um, business, how, and we see that, right? The Delhi pollution case is a case, an example where, quite frankly, the talks of even evacuating an entire city. The talks of, during the rainy season, we've got Chennai and, Bangalore being, completely flooded because of the fact that, people are building high-rise apartment buildings on places where they're not supposed, where it's supposed to be, doing, where it was primarily for rainwater seepage. So all of these are issues, sustainability. So we said that there are issues with respect to sustainability. So we need to focus on the topic. And we said that, solar panel installations, and solar panel obviously is something which, the government is pushing hard. And so we said, can we integrate, something related to some of the issues related to the bottom of the pyramid and sustainability. So that was a discussion which the team had. And we had multiple discussions on this. In fact, just for a topic, the discussion took nearly about a month. And then we said that, and sustainability by itself, and solar panels, a lot of people associate solar panels with, respect to, affordability, maybe more urban towns. But then we realized that as we did a little bit of preliminary research, is that solar panels actually are the key issue around solar panels is not necessarily urban areas, but rural areas where the key, where the rural market or semi-urban market, they are fossil food, they are using kerosene, or you're cutting down wood, right, for their everyday, needs in terms of cooking, etc. And that's the reason why this particular study was important. And it was kind of leading edge because when we did the research again, we found that the only two or three people were doing something in India with respect to this. And most of the research was actually outside of India. And the most cited paper was actually a paper in Africa. So we said that, so a lot of times the key problem about publishing is to focus on the topic which is leading edge, and number two, even if it's leading edge, to find out what are the gaps in the marketplace with respect to the problem which we are talking about, identify those gaps, and then come out with solutions through your research. And that by itself took us about 2 or 3 months, and that's how the topic came about. So the topic again, just it's about solar panel installation, the bottom of the pyramid market, key issues associated with sustainability. And so the first topic, as I said, to find out what the business problem is. This is a business problem. It's just not at the corporate level, or it's not at the government level. It affects nearly all of us in some form or fashion. And the bottom of the pyramid, we think that is not associated with sustainability. But then, we found that actually it's the other way around, where most of the government initiatives like the Har Ghar Solar, which is there in Uttar Pradesh, is actually targeted only at the bottom of the pyramid to ensure that there is the sustainability level is sustainable initiatives are percolating down to the bottommost level. So the key issue about is, which is what I just to reiterate before I hand it over, to my panelists on this is number one, identifying the topic, right? Going into, finding out what the business problem is. And most of the time, when you identify what the business problem is, you must also realize that somebody somewhere in some portion of the world is working on that business problem, right? So it is not that you are unique in the marketplace. Somebody is working on that business problem somewhere, has done some work in some form or fashion. So the whole idea is to find out what are the gaps, right? Look at again, ensure that you go to Google Scholar, you look at the papers, the research papers which are already there in the market. Look at some of the business models which are there, and identify the gaps, right? So you may not necessarily be the first in the market, or you're not necessarily kind of reinventing the wheel, or you're not the next Einstein. But what you're trying to do is identify the business problem and look at what other people are doing, look at the gaps, and then try to solve the problem, right? And moment you are, and this for us, took nearly about 2 months to give you a perspective, especially for researchers who are doing this for the very first time, to find out, what the business problem is, what the current researchers are doing in the marketplace. They studied, the team of 3 people whom we have will talk about, the kind of research they did, about 8 to 10 papers which they studied, and then said that, hey, look, this seems to be the gaps which we've identified in the marketplace, and now we need to go to the next steps, which means that get into primary data collection, which is designing a questionnaire, ensuring that we're able to administer those questionnaire. And that questionnaire, again, you must understand it's bottom of the pyramid, right? A lot of people you are administering the questionnaire to don't even know how to read and write. So we actually went to rural households in Karjat, in the nearby villages. Amrita went to UP, and I went to West Bengal. And we actually got primary data not by asking them to fill up, because a lot of these people are not educated enough to write some of those responses. So that is the kind of things which we had with primary data. And primary data, you must understand, for again first time researchers, the minimum kind of data you need about 100 plus before you get into analysis of that, right? And luckily we had about 200 plus respondents in the primary data, and that helped us on the research and analysis piece. And then obviously we came in, we decided to focus on, from the research analysis, some of the counterintuitive things, right? Things which give you the insights, things which are counterintuitive, which the team will talk about. And that actually becomes the core of the paper, right? And the moment you're able to do that and put that together, right, in a format, automatically researchers and publications start recognizing that, hey, look, there seems to be in this particular research topic, or the kind of counterintuitive things which these researchers have found, have kind of come to some conclusion with, have some meaning. And that's the reason why we would like to publish it and ensure that that paper gets much wider audience. So just to give you, I think, a quick perspective about the entire RI process, why research is important. It's not just about getting a few grades, and it's a 4-unit course. Obviously, it's important, but to ensure that you actually in 6 months you're able to solve a business problem. And not just solve a business problem by some theoretical pieces, by actually using primary and secondary data, using university level pedagogy and research tools, and then come to the counterintuitive things which actually make a difference in terms of the market. So, with that, I would like to hand this over to Vijay first and then Amrita. And Vijay, I would like to ask you the question again, which I think we discussed is what were the kind of issues you faced, right? And because primary data is actually, if you ask me, really the crux of the problem, right? And how you went about it. What are the challenges you faced? And after you got the primary data, how were you able to, kind of use the secondary data piece, use the mixed methodology, right? And come to those conclusions. So just walk us through those challenges, and then I'll go to Amrita.
Okay, sure thing, Professor. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak. Hi, everyone. I'm Vijay. I worked with Amrita and our colleague Sanya under Professor Partho for this research paper that we published. It's very simple, right? So there's like three key things that everybody should know about primary data research. The first is 80% of the value of your primary data does not come from the actual gathering of the primary data, even though it is the hardest. It comes from your research design. It comes from knowing what questions to ask. So you design your questionnaire very rigorously. It comes from clarity about how you're going to fit the scientific method. So you need to understand the scientific method very well. It's important that you ask questions, the answers to which can be measured. Something that can be statistically measured, something that can be defined well, something that is not internally incoherent. It has to be logically coherent from beginning to end. Once you've done that, and once after you identify your topic, you design your questionnaires, etc., this is where the hard work begins. So your strike rate when it comes to actually getting responses for primary data is a brute force problem. If you ask 100 people, maybe you will get 3, 4, 5, 6. On a good day, you'll get 10 responses. But that's just how it is. For example, me, Amrita, and Sanya, we were at the Vijayabhumi campus. So at least one leg of our primary research, apart from the legs where we did it in our own native places, was in and around Karjat and the villages around there as well. We would have asked close to 1,500 people across multiple villages over a period of time. But out of that, we got maybe 60 responses for just the Karjat region. And that's just how it is. You're going to have a very, very small percentage of responses, and you have to be able to handle the fact that people are going to say no, that they're not interested in answering your questions, that maybe sometimes they don't even know the answers to your questions. For example, let's say, for example, for one thing, because we were doing bottom of the pyramid research, we had to ask people their income. But a lot of people weren't willing to disclose their income. And a lot of people didn't even know what their actual income was. They'd never done the math in their head. So those are the sort of challenges you're going to face. People are going to say no to you. People won't have the answers you necessarily need. And even if they do give you some answers, often the answers will be nonsensical. And you're going to have to go through that entire process anyway, filter it all out, and whatever you can make sense of, you keep. After all that, the other thing you need to know is the more responses you get, the bigger your statistical group is, the bigger the larger your base of data is, the more valid your conclusions are. So if you get maybe like 200 responses plus, like what we got, that's a great sign that the research you're doing is closer to the truth. And that's also something that when you submit to research publications, they will take more seriously. So one way to go about it is to really think of it as you are trying to prove the truth about some aspect of the world we live in. And the more responses you get, the larger your base data bank is, the closer you are to that truth. The third, and this is like a final bit of advice that I would give people about their primary data, and not just the collection process, but the processing processes, don't overcomplicate things. The cleaner and more clearly logical your research process is, the better. You need three types of people whenever you're doing research, and thankfully, I think me, Amrita, and Sanya fit those three archetypes really perfectly, so which is why our research went well. You need one person who's very analytical, who can break things down and identify just the key components of things. This person is required for designing the research process, because you need something that is very clear, where the conclusions follow straight from the premises. The second is you need someone who is a very good synthesizer, who can put things together and realize, oh, there's a hidden connection here. Why do you need this? Because when you do your research, the value of your research does not come from ideas that are already intuitively explained. It comes from unexpected findings, strange findings that nobody realized existed but could have a huge impact. That's one thing that our research paper had, that was like that was a bit of a game changer. So that's something that's very important. And for such a person, you need someone who can connect the dots. The third person you need is someone who's an organizer, who takes all this data, all these insights that you have, and organizes them in a meaningful manner, in a narrative that is easy to understand. So your end goal is, from the primary data, collect as much data as you can, analyze it as thoroughly as possible, find those few important insights that nobody could have thought of, that emerge from the data in a way that nobody knew before this, and highlight them, and then communicate those insights properly. That would be the whole process from start to end. So that's my take on it. Thank you, everyone. And I think I'll pass it on to Sir or Amrita. Sir, you're muted.
I'll pass it on to Amrita. So, Amrita, take us again through your process, right? I mean, of what was your experience? What are the challenges you faced? Because especially in the field, right? In the end, research is about getting data, working in the field. After working in the field, analyzing that data, obviously using a methodology piece, working on the counterintuitive pieces which Vijay just mentioned. So take us through the steps, because it would help future researchers. And you're on mute, so you just need to unmute and then come onto the screen. Yeah, go ahead.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much for giving me the opportunity. So first of all, I will talk about the challenges that we faced while we were researching on the field. Like, I'll talk about my experience that we encountered during our research in and around Karjat. So what happened? Most of the time when we were asking people about whether they know about the solar panel, most of the time they knew about it, but they did not know the exact name. So we had to show them the pictures that see, this is what it looks like. And the second thing was like, so I will share one very personal experience. So what happened when we were going for the interview thing. So while returning back, there was a guy who seemed like he was drunk, and we did not realize it first. So we went and we were questioning him, and then when we realized that he is not the right person that we should ask, so we ended our question very fast, and then we were returning back. So that person literally chased us, and then we ran and we came back, and we were like very relieved. So while we were going for all those things, it is very important for us to scan also the environment and also the kind of people, so who you think that are approachable, you should approach them, and not the person who you think they are shady or that kind of people. And for the analysis process, what else? So when we were doing the analysis of our research, we analyzed through various things. We analyzed through Tableau, Excel, SPSS, and then we also analyzed through Python, because since we were interviewing people, we had their responses in word to word response. So those things cannot be converted into binary data. So we had to go for the natural NLP, natural language processing thing. And then we did cloud mapping. We took the help from seniors and we analyzed it thoroughly so that we can get good conclusion, and then also to make sure that whatever the findings we had were correct, and they all all the apps showed the same thing. That's all, sir.
Yeah, thanks, Vijay and Amrita. So if you just looking at the mapping of the process, right? I mean, and if you kind of take an end-to-end piece, which is the reason why a lot of people keep asking me this question, sir, why does it have to be 6 months? Why not 3 months or 4 months? I think, if you looked at, if you followed what Vijay and Amrita, kind of spoke about, uh, the process actually can take years, which is exactly what you require, what PhD scholars or researchers do. Right, in corporate, for example, I mean, you can come out, you obviously the process remains the same when when you're coming out with a patent, and you're coming out with a particular design which is unique. The process remains the same, right? So just to kind of give people the perspective that the 6 months which you require is kind of end to end, which means that first month or first couple of months you're just focusing on the business problem which needs to be solved. Once you focus on the business problem which needs to be solved, you figure out how many people have already worked on that, look at the gaps, and then move into the market, right? And moving into the market, as what Vijay correctly pointed out, designing the right kind of questionnaire, right, which captures the gaps, right, is extremely important, right? And then obviously administering the questionnaire, which is what Amrita spoke about, to the right kind of people, right, is becomes even more important. There is no absolutely, in any kind of research, the key pillar always is primary data. And and obviously the methodology. After the primary data comes the methodology. And again, they used a whole bunch of tools, which at their disposal, focused on both qualitative and quantitative tools, and came to those conclusions. So this is where, as I said, the robustness, the pedagogy, the end-to-end piece, and more importantly, my my recommendation to researchers, at a lot of times, you can get very discouraged, right, when you're not able to, people are not responding to your calls, or even when you're meeting them, they'll shut the door in your face, right? All of those things which kind of happen. But then you must persist, right? I mean, because in the end you must understand that without that data, quite frankly, research is going to be of no use to anybody, right? And the whole idea for this is, with 200 plus respondents which we got, was a very good basis on which we could actually come to certain conclusions. Now, how much time do we have, Vibha, by the way?
So we have just 2 more minutes to wrap
2
up.
minutes. Yeah. So maybe I'll just ask both Vijay and Amrita to talk about the counterintuitive pieces. Okay. So Vijay, first go ahead on the counterintuitive pieces from your side, and then maybe hand it over to Amrita very quickly. Okay. Since
Okay,
we are running out of
so
time.
the quick answer to like finding counterintuitive pieces is very simple, right? One is you use your own common sense before you actually engage in the primary research part, and you discuss about what you expect, because then you have a clear idea of what you expect. And as soon as your research says something that's different, okay, this is counterintuitive, this is something that's publishable and creates an insight we didn't know. The other thing you do is you look for secondary research and your primary research not matching. If that's not matching, there is some counterintuitive part in your primary research. Here you have to be careful. Is it due to a flaw in your own research methodology? If yes, then maybe eliminate that part, or maybe declare it properly. But if no, then you found something that the existing research did, and that's a very valuable thing. So those are your two primary ways. And the value of counterintuitive research is that it gives you new insights. It gives the entire world new insights into what we can do, or there is some direction where we didn't have enough information. Okay, this is a new piece of information. There's a lot of recommendations you can make with it that weren't possible to make before. And because it's such an attention grabbing thing, the minute you highlight the counterintuitive parts of your data in your abstract, in your introduction, it grabs the attention of journals, it grabs the attention of conferences, and then they're more likely to publish it. So that's my piece. Over to Amrita.
Yeah. Amrita, go ahead. And we have a question. So it's a very good question. So I want to cover
I
that as well.
think
Yeah. Go ahead.
I think we should answer the question for now. I think
Yeah,
we should
okay.
answer the question for now.
Yeah. So the question is, what should be our mindset when writing a research paper? And I'll answer it from my side, and then I'll hand it over to both Amrita as well as to Vijay to answer this question. It's a very good question, by the way. What should be our mindset? Should our mindset be focused on grades? Should our mindset be focused on publishing? Should our mindset be focused on using this as maybe to write a business plan, to be an entrepreneur? So you can do it multiple ways. So for this particular aspect, when we looked at, the solving this problem, quite frankly, our mindset, if you, from the team's mindset, was not to necessarily come out with a business plan. We can, I mean, if you follow the discussion, actually, if you want to sell to the bottom of the pyramid, a lot of the insights, especially the counterintuitive pieces, which Vijay spoke about, can be used to build a business plan for selling not just solar panels, but a whole bunch of things to the bottom of the pyramid, things related to microfinance, etc. But our focus was not that. We said, this will be a building block to kind of get to the next level in understanding the bottom of the pyramid in more detail. Taking solar panels as an example, because that's obviously, a key building block. But instead of solar panels, you could just take any other initiative, right, to the bottom of the pyramid and actually build a business plan in terms of marketing to the bottom of the pyramid. So I'll hand it over to Vijay. He may have something completely different, or and then Amrita on their thoughts to this question. It's a very good question, by the way.
Yeah, thank you, Professor. Great question, by the way. Who is it? Pranav, right? Amazing question. It's actually something I've thought a lot about. Here's the thing I will tell you. There are two things that students, especially business students, two mistakes they make because they have a preset mindset that actually gets in the way of research. When you're doing research, it's not a task. You are required to show independence of mind, a degree of creativity, a degree of abstraction, a degree of making your own decisions that you won't get initially in your jobs. I'm sure you guys have experienced internships before, and you definitely don't get in your classroom. So the biggest roadblock for a lot of people is that independence of mind. But it's when you think of it as freedom, it is a very useful way of thinking about it to move ahead towards that sort of project. You have the freedom to ask the questions you want. You have the freedom to decide how you're going to find the answers. And the only thing in your way are facts and logic and how you can adapt them to fit your purposes. The second thing, the more important thing that I would suggest is do not think of it in terms of better or worse. You are not here trying to accomplish something, you are trying to find the truth. Research is about the true-false dichotomy. Am I finding some truth about the world? It is not about, is this better than this? That could be in the recommendation section to an extent. But the core purpose of research is to find some scientific truth about reality. So my answer is don't think like engineers, think like scientists. You are trying to solve a problem in some sense, but you're not trying to find a recommendation about what is better primarily. That's a secondary goal. Your primary goal is to find the truth. And so it's more important to be logical than it is to be practical and pragmatic. So that's my take on it. Professor, you're muted.
Mute. Yeah, I'm on mute. Sir. Yeah. So another question is that Pranav wants to do a research project on robotics, and he says that how do I do research without primary data? Now, my advice to Pranav is that yes, you may not necessarily need to do the door-to-door things which this team did in terms of rural households, but you definitely need to do some kind of primary data analysis. So whether you are talking to some robotics companies, you're talking to some experts in the field, or you're following some LinkedIn group chats, or you're participating in that, or you're doing some focused interviews. Because you must understand that if you just do research on secondary data, not too many people will take you very seriously, right? Because of number one, of obviously, it's your antecedents as a student, and they'll say, hey, look, everybody's got access to secondary data. That is number one. And number two, your methodology in terms of analyzing the secondary data, and obviously you could analyze the secondary data and come to some conclusions on that, but that may not necessarily lead to a paper publication. So that's my thought process. Vijay, you have any thoughts on this?
Can you hear me?
Yeah. Go ahead.
Okay, so another great question, Pranav. Robotics. Okay, so here's what I will say, right? Primary data is not limited to just surveys. This is actually not a primary data question. It's a research design question, which is how do you design your research in such a way that you are able to achieve your research outcomes? Now you're saying you're trying to invent something, right? You're trying to create some innovations in new methods in robotics. So, okay. So are you creating the new method here, or are you just like compiling multiple new methods and saying how they can be used, etc.? So if it's the former, if you're creating a new method, your primary data is creating and then testing the efficacy of your method. That is quite literally what the primary data you will be doing is. And testing the efficacy can be internal, which is what you test on yourself using your own statistical methods. And it also has to be external, which is you get other expert validation. But if you're just compiling a list of methods and their uses, then your primary data would really be, I don't think a survey is a bad way of doing that, but you would combine your survey with a few expert interviews or with a focus group or something like that. So I would suggest if you're just compiling a list of new methods in robotics, you primarily do a survey among engineers, wide range, at least 100 or so. Apart from that, you do like an expert interview or an expert focus group with a few experts in the specific methods that you're talking about, who know about the industry applications, who know about the applications in research. That's one way to go about it. And if you're inventing a new method altogether, that's an amazing research project, by the way. But you don't really have to do anything except invent the method, test it, prove it exists, and then like prove it's valid, and then like speak to experts about it in terms of what its use case can be. So that would be my recommendation.
Yeah, Pranav, just to kind of add on to what Vijay said, one way, in fact, obviously you don't need to do, you don't have to go door to door like what this team did. But, you just joined a LinkedIn group on, say, robotics. Okay, I'll just give you an example, which is a focused group, which is what Vijay mentioned, right, on robotics. And there are discussions on, robotics out there. So you contribute, then you ask a few questions. Maybe you can even give an approach white paper. Then people will comment. There may be, some social media sites, on robotics, some GitHub, somewhere, some community. I'm very sure everything's got a community, right, where you share. So that's also primary data, by the way. Just to give you a perspective, primary data is not just about, going door to door and handing a questionnaire. It's also, participating in surveys, going to conferences or looking at or contributing something and getting some feedback based on your initial thoughts or your initial, pieces which you may have. So all of those things relate to primary data. What about going through existing papers? Yes, that is the first thing, Pranav, you need to do, because going through, you have to, if you want to do something in robotics and you want to solve a business problem, you have to figure out first as to how many people are working in that area in the first place. So you go to Google Scholar, get yourself registered. Automatically, you have access to the whole bunch of white papers in robotics, and you would be surprised, as finding out, how many people are actually solving or looking at solving similar kind of problems in robotics. So don't get discouraged. There will be, even though people may be working, there will be, enough opportunity for you to identify the gaps and supplement those pieces on which you can base your research. Yeah, go ahead, Vijay.
So as for the existing papers question, Pranav, that's secondary research and that's secondary data and literature review. It's not primary data. Primary data is the data you gather by yourself. Secondary data is data based on studies, etc., that have already been done. Secondly, to add on to what Professor said about Google Scholar, because it's a very useful tool, also learn, like you can, a quick YouTube video will tell you, learn how to search for the exact topics you want on Google Scholar. You can, there's a sort of framework for using the plus mark and quotations, etc. Thirdly, I'll give you a few more tools to use. I think everybody has Perplexity Pro now because of that Airtel deal for a year, which is great for students like us. But also there is a resource called Stanford Storm. And what Stanford Storm does is that it makes, if you put in any topic and you give the purpose for why you're using it, it will make a Wikipedia style article about that entire topic on the spot, and it will give you a list of references. So the article itself is great for understanding, but there's a massive list of references that comes with it that you can then use for your literature review. So in one shot, you get a lot of different resources, and then you can comb through them, read them at your, like at a good speed, hopefully, and pick the ones that are valuable, and you can put them in your literature review in your secondary data. It's a very valuable tool. Sanya and I and Amrita absolutely used it when we were doing our literature review and secondary research. So I thought I'd share it with you.
Yeah. And all
Can
the
we wrap
best.
it up, please?
Yeah.
So you can see the closing remarks, and then we can close it in next
Yeah,
time.
yeah, yeah. So, we had a very, very good, I think, discussion. And since this is going to be, this is going to be recorded. So, just to kind of close out this, RI, is an important subject. Unfortunately, as I said, a lot of people look at this just as a means to get a grade. And that's the reason why we are having this session, is that it's maybe one of the most important courses which you need to take seriously as you go out into the real world, because what you're doing is basically you're solving a problem. You know how to, once you've identified a problem, you are identifying ways to solve that problem. You use research to solve that problem. And not only that, even if you are not necessarily be going for any kind of or an entrepreneurship course, a lot of multinationals, for example, have COEs which just focus on research, right? And a lot of that research is focused on just the same methodology which we just spoke about, right, in different forms and formats. So at the UG level, if you're able to publish a paper understanding the methodology and the processes, automatically that gives you that differentiator when you embark into your actual corporate world or your entrepreneurial world, or sometimes, as I said, doing your master's or your PhD. So that's what I want to kind of conclude my this session with. Thank you once again, Amrita and Vijay, for their contribution. And I would just like to say, moment you publish that paper, it's your own piece of intellectual property which kind of is unique to you and which will be against your name forever. So it's something to be very proud of, right? And it's just important we take this course seriously. Okay? Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Uh,
Thank you
Yeah,
so
go
much,
ahead.
Vijay and Parthasa, for joining us.
Thank
And
you.
I
Yes.
believe that your insights and experience will help the future researchers while doing their research, and will help them facing the challenges that they're facing primary data collection or biasness in the research. And on behalf of our audience, I would like to thank you. And if you have any further queries, I would like to see the audience. You can drop them in the chat, and our panelists will be happy to help you. And okay, then we can end this session now if you have nothing to speak about.
Sure. Thank you. Thank you once
Thank
again,
you.
everyone.
Thank
Yeah.
you,
Thank you
everyone.
so much for
Bye.
joining.
Bye-bye.